JJK took over the entire world last year with its exhilarating second season, covering of course Gojo's past and hidden inventory and the exhilarating Shibuya arc. I was in fact so captivated by this arc that I was personally compelled to read the manga. And golly, it was so damn good, man. But to a certain point. I do go in more detail regarding the narrative frailties of Jujutsukaisen in the video I'm going to link above. It's a great listen and I would thoroughly encourage you go ahead and check it out as I go into more depth into the entire story of JJK starting from the beginning up until the Gojo and Sukuna fights, considering the amount of plot holes and all the amount of depth and development we didn't get amply in the manga. Unfortunately though, my sentiments remain as it seems that Gege has poured an entire bottle of paint thinners on the narrative integrity of the story. Instead of the plot continuing to thicken, other than cool and exciting combat, I find myself having little to no emotional investments in these final fights. The good guys simply have to beat Sukuna or the world is going to end. There is no character progression or resolution I'm looking forward to, there's no interesting plot twist coming anytime soon, nor is there any other goal that our characters are currently pursuing. The best stories have layer upon layer of narrative depth to uncover as you reach the ultimate conclusion. Instead, we're left frustrated to the myriad of plot points that will never be properly concluded, the much world building that never actually happened, and then we have on the side over here probably the most intelligent manga community I've ever seen in my life overanalyze every single panel just to cope with the fact of the huge amount of plot points and plot holes that Gege has left behind in their story. This video will of course be filled with manga spoilers, so if you're an anime only, this is your point to probably go ahead and hit out. Jujutsu Kaisen is still great. Gojo vs Sukuna is everything you've ever wanted and more, but unfortunately the story will let you down. Enjoy JJK for what it truly is, cool stuff happening on screen, for better or for worse. Now, Gege Akutami has a tendency to add complexity to Jujutsu Kaisen unnecessarily. I say unnecessarily because there are many instances where the complexity brings no value to the entire experience. So many chapters were spent explaining the importance of Tengen, his barrier, the very complex structure of the culling games, the overly convoluted conditions, the point system, the oddly long process of recruiting Hakari to the cause, Kenjaku's overly complex ulterior motives that are barely even interesting and most likely lead to absolutely nothing. Geke's love for complexity thoroughly benefits the combat as it allows for amazing strategic spectacle in which you love this show for. Keeping track of what's going on and what their powers are is simply exciting. It's a shame though that that same depth isn't carried over to the plot, the character development, and the world building. Overall, I definitely did enjoy the final arc, but the narrative payoff simply wasn't there. So what I did in fact was change my entire view of Jujutsu Kaisen and focused on what they do best, throwing hands. And after I did that, I enjoyed it a lot more. Over-analysis was not going to make me enjoy the show more, but more so frustrate me due to the narrative holes. But the thing is, my emotional attachment to the show was also reduced, as now I mainly just read it for, I guess, entertainment. Now, don't get this wrong, Gojo vs Sukuna, the fight that's been hyped up since pretty much episode 1, is one of the best fights in manga history. If MAPPA can successfully animate this correctly, which I'm pretty sure they will as JJK is their #1 baby, it's going to be one of the most exciting events in anime history. What an absolutely exhilarating fight that completely gets my blood pumping even today. I'm convinced that battle will not be forgotten for ages. It is undoubtedly the peak of Jujutsu Kaisen, and everything that comes afterwards is simply inferior in terms of stakes and quality. That issue was absolute peak, my guy. Gege was absolutely cooking, man. Now, there are absolutely some great moments that happened afterwards, don't get me wrong. Higuruma's awakening is amazing, despite being short-lived. Seeing Yuta cook and finally see him at his full potential is also very cool to see, and Yuji becoming a special grade and ultimately dealing the final blow to Sukuna is also very satisfying, but there are a number of problems that arise from the way that ending was handled. Personally, I'm not a fan of the main character making huge leaps in powers without at least a short training arc or a montage. A power increase of more than 50% without us seeing the boy putting the hours in the gym is personally too much of a stretch in my opinion, especially considering how much JJK states that it's pretty much impossible for you to make a substantial leap in power. It pretty much focuses on talent, talent, talent. And this is something that will piss me off, and I'm sure will piss off many fans of the show as well. Not distinctly explaining the structure of Yuji's domain expansion is an absolute war crime. It's crazy that this was never done in the show. This dude chooses to be vague with one of the most important moments in the show. Like, well, what in the world is his domain? Is it talk no jutsu? So if you don't change your ways, you die, or you attack the soul? It's really crazy that this isn't properly explained. Like, what's going on, man? And the other unnecessary thing was continuously pushing Gojo into our faces via flashbacks and teasing the idea that there might be a return for Gojo, with so many other characters coming back which we haven't seen in so long, such as the return of Nobara and Todo. As I had mentioned, this fanbase is extremely thorough, so the way that they were using everything to try and justify his return was just pure entertainment. Despite all the many frailties I've pointed out in this discussion, JJK is still a good show, but just fumbles the bag in its final moments. Considering all the attention that JJK was able to garner, it's a true shame that Gege Akutami wasn't able to stick the landing. It's really unfortunate because it seems the new generation of anime, after the previous big three of Naruto, Bleach, and One Piece, the trend of the new gen is to have an unsatisfying ending. Now, the ending of JJK isn't as bad as Attack on Titan, that is a complete rare case, but it is not the best. The My Hero Academia ending was also disappointing, as I've heard, and so was the Demon Slayer ending, which is quite disappointing. The Seven Deadly Sins ending was also quite trash, but to be honest, that show fell off a lot earlier than people even reached the ending. And now here we are with Jujutsu Kaisen having a middling and mediocre conclusion. It is a damn shame that JJK didn't live up to the hype in which we'd given it, but it is what it is. The combat was good, and that is what Gege Akutami clearly cared the most about. The ending may have been disappointing, but the moments we had between the start and the finish will not be forgotten and gives us some of the most memorable moments in manga and anime history. Shout out to Gege Akutami and JJK. Respect to you for finally finishing your story. This is no small feat what you have achieved. Thank you once again for joining me on my channel. I'm Explicit Sage, and I'll check you next time.